Welcome to Grammar and Punctuation video number 7. In this video, we're going to cover verb agreement and modifiers. We know that sentences and clauses have a subject and a verb. We must remember that the subject and the verb should agree in number. So this means when the subject is singular, the verb is singular. When the subject of the sentence is plural, the verb is going to be plural. Let's take a look at an example of subject-verb agreement. I'd like you to pause the video for a second, read through these sentences, and tell me which one is correct. Okay. We have the natural disasters that keep devastating various countries is a great atrocity. Or the natural disasters that keep devastating various countries are a great atrocity. I have the linking verbs here highlighted for you, and of course the subjects, these nouns. So natural disasters, hopefully you can recognize that as being plural, and the correct verb is are because it is plural as well. Collective nouns can cause some confusion with subject-verb agreement. I'd like you to pause the video for a second and decide which of these two sentences is correct. Okay, we have a troop at the beginning of this sentence, which is singular. We have clowns, which is plural. When we put them together, is this singular or plural, a troop of clowns? The answer to that question is that this is singular. An easy way to test if the verb is singular is to get rid of a troop of clowns and put something singular, like in this case, a clown. A clown on a drinking binge often scares small children. Suddenly you can see that this verb doesn't work. It's actually scares. A clown on a drinking binge often scares small children. So in this case, we have a troop scares and clowns scare. So remember these collective nouns, they are singular in meaning and they often cause confusion with the verb. Now that we've looked at a single example of a collective noun and verb agreement, let's look at some more. The team are going to show up at noon. Hopefully you can see or feel that this just doesn't sound right. We know that this should be the team is going to show up at noon. So that troop of clowns, we could say a team of players is going to show up at noon. So the team is singular. The jury made their final deliberation. Is that correct or incorrect? Well, the jury, is that a single entity? Is it a collective noun? It is. The jury made its final deliberation. We know that the team and the jury are filled with people, but they are still treated as single entities. Let's move on to modifiers. Modifiers are words or phrases that modify or relate to different words in the sentence, usually a noun. Sometimes we'll have modifiers pointing to the wrong noun or just making an incorrect relationship within a sentence, changing the meaning of the sentence. So what I'd like you to remember most about modifiers is that modifiers cause the sentence to be read in two different ways. We can read it two ways, one incorrect way and one correct way. Misplaced modifiers are usually phrases that are placed incorrectly in a sentence. So we'll have a phrase that's relating to a noun, but usually we can choose a different noun, changing the meaning. So let's take a look at an example. The police took the money from the drug dealer in a stack of bills. Okay, well when we first read this, I'm hoping that you connected the money to the stack of bills. But we have another noun that's very close to this phrase, which is the drug dealer. So the question is the drug dealer in a stack of bills? Let's reread it and think that. The police took the money from the drug dealer in a stack of bills. So you can see that we can read this incorrectly. Now, most of you probably could tell what this person meant, but we still want to be clear in our writing. So we'd have to rewrite this sentence. The police took the money in a stack of bills from the drug dealer. Let's take a look at another example of a misplaced modifier. I'd like you to pause the video for a second and make sure that you can see how you can read this sentence in two ways. Okay, we have, my therapist informed me that I would be seeing her again while I was being hypnotized. Well, you can see the meaning here is that we're actually going to see the therapist again, okay? Not while being hypnotized. This is actually when we were informed. Okay, so is the person actually going to see the therapist while being hypnotized? That's not what this person is trying to say. While I was being hypnotized, my therapist informed me that I would be seeing her again. Let's try one more misplaced modifier. Can you spot how this sentence can be read in two ways? Pause the video and come back when you're finished. Here we have, if you register early, you can get lessons about hiding your identity from a private detective. Well, you can see that it reads as if we're hiding our identity from the private detective. Really, we want the lessons from the private detective. So this is our modification error right here. Here is a possible edit. If you register early, you can get lessons from a private detective about hiding your identity. So you can see we've moved this phrase close to what it should be modifying. Limiting modifiers are a little bit different. These are single words that cause a double meaning in a sentence. Some examples here. Only is the one that usually causes the most problems. The aliens only spoke to each other while visiting Earth for the 476th time. Okay, well, we have two possible meanings here. They only spoke to each other, as in only to themselves, or is this the only time they spoke to each other while they were on this visit? Now that we've looked at a limiting modifier, here's one for you to try on your own. Pause the video until you can see how this can be read in two ways. So the two different ways we have here would be only aliens can operate the spacecraft, or this is the only spacecraft aliens can operate. Squinting modifiers are almost the same as limiting modifiers. They are a single word that creates a double meaning in the sentence. Let's look at this example. Communicating clearly is challenging. Can you see how this has a double meaning? Are we talking about communicating, or are we talking about communicating clearly? Let's look at some revisions. It is clearly challenging to communicate. It is challenging to communicate with clarity. So you can see here we've rewritten the sentence in two different ways to clarify the meaning. Here's an example for you. Pause the video until you can figure out how this can be read in two ways. So we have, Bilbo said today he wants to bathe in grape jello. We have two possibilities here. Did he say it today, or does he want to do it today? We would need to rewrite this sentence for clarity. Today, he said he wants to bathe in grape jello, or he said he wants to bathe in grape jello today. Sometimes the term being modified in a sentence actually isn't there. This is a problem. This causes us to assume and sometimes latch on to a different noun. Let's take a look at an example. Jogging down the path, the mountain came into view. Okay, well, we can make some assumptions here. We know that people jog down paths, so we would think that there's a person jogging down the path, but you'll notice that that person is not mentioned in this sentence. So often we will go to the next noun and will believe that this is the subject of the sentence. So is this mountain jogging down the path? We can actually read it that way. Jogging down the path, the mountain came into view. Quite humorous. This is what's known as a dangling modifier. Here's an example for you. Pause the video until you can see how this can be read in two ways. We have, being from a small town, the traffic seemed intolerable. Once again, we're missing the person that is from the small town. So we might jump to the traffic and think that the traffic is from a small town. So being from a small town, the traffic seemed intolerable. Okay, that doesn't make sense. So we would have to add the subject here. One more example. Can you see how this can be read in two ways? We have, because of exhaustion, the bike was retired. Well, we know that bikes don't get exhausted. Human beings do. So it would have to be, because I was exhausted, the bike was retired. Something similar to that. We'd have to add in that subject. So once again, we're missing that. So with dangling modifiers, make sure what's being modified is actually in the sentence, or they become quite humorous and we start personifying objects. That's it for Grammar and Punctuation video number 7. If you find any of these topics confusing, please be sure to re-watch the video.